Joining me now with more, Montel Williams, who's an activist, former TV host, former naval intelligence officer, and a supporter of presidential candidate Governor John Kasich. Great to see you, Montel. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you too, Megan. Thanks for having me.
Do you think there's any chance that John Kasich is really actually in this to support Donald Trump?
I only laugh. Now, the question's a great question, but it's absurd. Absolutely absurd. I think John has been on record stating unequivocally that he wants a fair process. And I think if you take a look at the entire landscape, why would he not position himself this way? Because the more, in this particular situation, he can trump Cruz, he can also trump Trump. No one is going to go to this convention with the magic number.
So he's being strategic. You can't read too much into the actions about supporting one guy or another. He's being strategic for himself. Absolutely.
And I think unequivocally, people need to remember history in itself. Remember, you know, Lincoln wasn't picked until the third round. So truthfully, this can be, you were talking about it earlier, what happens to these delegates after their first vote? All bets are off.
Well, that's why there's this article in the Huffington Post on their 8 reasons why the GOP ticket will be Kasich-Rubio, they said.
I'm sitting there looking at it.
Trump's not going to get it on the first one.
Correct.
They said if you think the establishment's going to go for Ted Cruz, you're crazy.
Correct.
And they're going to look at one thing, which is who can beat Hillary, and they say that that's where John Kasich comes in.
And you look at the numbers are actually factual. You know, if it's Kasich against Hillary Clinton, he crushes her. If it's Kasich against Bernie, Bernie's got an opportunity there, but I think if we get into the general election and they're both running, I think Kasich will close that gap.
But 2 points on that. 2 points on that. Number one is people on the Trump team and on Cruz say Kasich hasn't gotten it that bad. He's never been the front runner, so they didn't have all the cannons aimed at him the way these other two. So his numbers would go down, and those matchups would not be as favorable to him. The other thing they say is, Ted Cruz said to me recently, the Republican nominee is not going to be a guy who lost 49 states.
Yeah, but you also take a look at the fact that neither one of the Democratic candidates ever bring up Kasich's name. And why? Because it's fear. They talk about the guy that they're really afraid of. They'll make everybody else understand his legitimacy behind the Kasich camp. They know that he's the guy that can beat them. So I really think this is all strategic, and it's strategic on the Democratic side also.
You know, the Republican Party has this problem. It's had this problem repeatedly, where there's a candidate who matches up well against the Democrat in the general election, but that candidate cannot get out of the Republican primary. And I don't know that they've figured out for themselves what the issue is. You know, for years people have been saying, we need to nominate a true conservative. And that's the person who, and Ted Cruz is still making that argument. But so many others in the party this year are saying, that's not, we don't care about conservatism. We want somebody to blow up the system.
They want a Reagan Republican. Well, listen to what a Reagan Republican is. He's a person that's inclusive. He's a person that listens. He's a person that works with both sides to see if he can come up with a solution. That was the Republican I was. I left the Republican Party after Ronald Reagan because the Republican Party left me. And now I'm an independent. But for the first time, I actually see a candidate that's looking at America the day after the election, not the day of.
30 seconds left.
Sure.
Why don't you like Cruz? Why don't you like Trump?
I will tell you that unequivocally from my perspective, and I would say most of the military people that I've spoken to, I cannot vote for Donald Trump. He's a person who literally obviated his responsibility and sought a deferment at a time when there were people in this country dying, and wrote about how lucky he was to get away with that, being able to chase women, and now he wants to be the commander-in-chief and send other people's children off to die. Not happening.
He said he had an injury.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, okay, and that's what but he also wrote about the fact that he got away with that in his book. And I'm so sorry. I just do not believe that Mr. Cruz represents the mindset of anybody in America except his own.
Montel Williams, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.